there, my name is Jordan Leroy Hansen, also known as LedDev, and we are now on to the final part of this card review. Now, for the remainder of the cards, most of these are what is kind of popularly known as quote-unquote pack filler. There is some interesting cards in here as well. It's most of the cards that have kind of like the ones that you're probably either going to play in Arena or such. Still, I do think there are some good cards to look at for the remainder of the set, and there is one last Legendary Loa, which we'll get to, but first off, we're going to get to the Arena sorry, little cough there. Arena Fanatic, a 4-mana 2/3 battlecry, give all minions in your hand +1/+1. Look, it's not bad. No, I'm not kidding. Look, the main reason why hand buff style archetypes were bad in the past was because, for the most part, hand buff decks were really slow because a majority of the minions you put in hand buff decks, with the exception of the random charge unit or taunt unit, were very slow minions to play. And getting a staff buff on average minions during that time was not really that great. However, with the abundance, and I mean it, abundance of Rush and even Taunt minions in the meta, it makes this card a lot more appealing than before. If the card was out before Rush was a mechanic, I would be on the bandwagon of many people who have been saying that this card is bad. However, I think it has more power than people's first glance at it. Give it a shot in Sue/Rush decks and be pleasantly surprised. Overall, this card is good. I think you can test this card in Zoo-based decks, Rush-based decks, or any decks that you think would benefit from the staff buff, the quote-unquote hand buff. So, keep that in mind. Also, the art's kind of hilarious. Next up, we actually now finally get to the final lower of the set, and I wish I could say the best was saved for last, but 5-mana Halazi the Lynx. It's a free 2 beast with Rush. Oh no, it doesn't have Rush. Sorry. The battle cry is fill your hand with 1/1 Lynxes that have Rush. Okay, let's just get this out of the way. While many people are saying that this is not a drop you want to play on turn 5, which is pretty safe to say, overall, I think this is a minion you want to play later to take advantage of the Lynxes. Kind of like how some people don't really want to play the legendary warrior weapon, Rastakhan or something like that, when they know they don't have enough mana to cast a spell, so they don't mill a card or such. And I think the card is kind of the same here. Overall, I think this is just a minion that in general you just want to play to take advantage of the Lynxes. Also, there is a card that can combine with another beast with Deathstalker Retsar, so that's actually kind of cool. It also could be used as an engine for Quest Hunter, which is something to consider at the very least to guarantee the completion of the quest. Now look, this is definitely, I'm not going to deny it, this is probably one of the worst lowest from the set. But overall, it's still a good card. It has its practical applications, and I think it's not going... It might feel a little bad pulling this as one of your legendaries, but I think it's still practical for some hunter decks that you can give it a shot. Try the card out, you'll be surprised. Next up, Dragon. Jeez, I'm always going to try to do the heavy metal screech with these cards. Now, it's a 2-mana spell that has add 2 random dragons to your hand. Okay, this is a really good card. Now, the card grade will vary depending on the dragon pool in the game. However, it turns out the fact that the current dragon pool is really good. Like, kind of absurdly good. And being able to add dragons to your hand to help activate dragon in hand battle cries is really nifty. Plus, it's also synergized with the legendary Troll Warrior card that adds copies of dragons that are in your hand, or doubles the copy, so to speak, so that's really nice. This will most likely see play in competitive, just for the fact that it synergizes with Dragon Warrior decks. And I think Dragon Warrior decks has the potential to be a very competitive archetype. So with that, I would say the card's amazing. It's a lot more powerful than you would think. Though, random side note here, Make sure that the card score will vary depending on each expansion and such, and when stuff rotate out and rotate in, because then the dragon pool will vary. So the card's power will vary, but in this current meta, with the current dragon pool we have so far and what's coming in the expansion, it is nuts. Now we go to Devastate, a 1 mana warrior spell. Deal 4 damage to a damaged minion. This one is pretty simple. It's just odd removal for odd warrior to help them since they don't have access to even base removal spells. If you need additional damage based removal spells, here you go. With that, it's just simply good. You will probably give this a shot, or even give it a shot in Control Warrior. Next up is the Arena Patron, a 5 mana free with the Overkill. Summon another Arena Patron. Get into the arena, eh? Okay, let's just cut to the chase. It's a meme card. Do you want to see this card's interaction, though, with cards like Mass Hysteria? Because I'm curious if with the Overkill effect, with the minion that it summons, that minion will also attack as well. I don't think with the rules case that will be the case, but I am curious about that. Still, that's pretty much it. Though it might be having some potentially funny interactions with Huntmaster Shaw. I would still be very careful playing this card. It's no Grim Patron. Enough said on that. The card's bad. Really, really bad. Next up is the Arena Treasure Chest, a 4 mana 0/4 with the Death Rattle, draw 2 cards. Look, the only positive synergy I can think of this card is with Neclium Vial, since this will get you to draw 4 cards. And maybe it's a Death Rattle to add to the Myra Battlecry trigger if that's one of your choices. The other choices are really, really not great and you need the card draw. Then you can pick that Death Rattle trigger. Still, I would say no to playing this card. You feel pretty bad when this is a dead card on the battlefield. Don't put it in your deck unless it's for joke shenanigans or you are tying it to a very specific synergy within your deck design. Don't just throw this in and think you're going to draw 2 cards of it. Just don't. Next up is the Akanai Phantasm, a 2 mana free 2 with a battle cry. This turn, your healing effect deals damage instead, and of course, it's an epic for priests. Actually, it's pretty good stats for a 2-drop, with a very fringe, but potentially very combo-focused battle cry. Most likely you'll play it to use cheap hero spells to damage the opponent, or just use as a control spell. You'll probably see play in control, please. Not sure about combo priest still. The stats are aggressive to consider for aggro, so that's a possibility. Cards, just a really functional 2-drop that's also just a practical late game if you tailor your deck to take advantage of the battle cry. Overall, it's a good card. I think Priest will give this card a shot. Next up, the Banana Buffoon, a 3 mana 2/2 with the battle cry. Add 2 bananas to your hand. Stats are not that great, but let's be frank, you're playing this card for the bananas, and it's a relatively cheap card to get 2 cheap spells. Those bananas can synergize with buff mechanics as well as spell-based mechanics, Auction Master, etc. It also just could be used for hand-based mechanics, such as if you need to fill up your hand for a Mountain Giant and such. I think this card is pretty good to try in decks that want either the buffs from the bananas or just cheap spells for spell shenanigans. So overall, I think the card's good. You can give it a shot without too much of a sweat as long as you put it in the right deck. Next up, Booty Bay Buki, a 2 mana free. Is that how you pronounce it? Booty Bay Buki. Oh, Buki. Gotcha. A 2 mana free. Okay, and the battle cry, give your opponent a coin. This is pretty bad. Okay, well, a free for a 2-drop seems tempting. It is not tempting for the cost of giving your opponent extra mana to give them a curve advantage. It might be used for milling shenanigans, trying to fill opponent's hand, but giving opponents a cheap 0 spell for potential late-game spell-based combos can be very costly. I highly recommend not playing this card. This card is bad. Don't play this card unless you, I don't know, want to do a very meme-based Shutterwalk deck. No, seriously, just don't play this card. Next up, the Dozing Marksman. A 2 mana 0/4 has 4 attack, wild damage. Yeah, a 0/4 is not stats you want to play. However, this might be an interesting card to test in pain-based warrior decks and such, or even a priest inner fire deck. Besides that, card's not that great, but it can be pretty fun in the right decks, though. So not that great, but I think this is just going to be a very fun card to experiment with. Next up, the Drakari Trickster. A 3-mana free 4, great stats. Battlecry, give each player a copy of a random card from their opponent's deck. There is a part of me that is scared of the symmetrical style effect that this card provides. However, this just might be a card to test in Thief Rogue or just Thief Priest style decks. The stats are good for a free drop, and it's just a semi-decent card draw card. I think it's a card to toy around with at the very least, and pull some tricks on your opponent, or possibly yourself. Nevertheless, I think the card's good. You'll have some fun with it. Next up, the Former Champ, a 5-mana 1/1, Battlecry, summon a 5/5 Hotshot. This one is actually a pretty decent common for Battlecry-centric decks, and even ones that use Shaman Evolve-based mechanics. However, it is going to be feeling bad to evolve into this, though. You may play the card if you take advantage of both the 1/1s and the 5/5s. Overall, pretty simple, good card. You might play it. It won't feel that bad playing the card, unless you summon it through other means and you just only get the 1/1 out of it. Next up. This one's a hard one to reveal, but let's get over it. The 1-mana Gurubashi Offering. It's a 0/2, and at the start of your turn, destroy this and gain 8 armor. Yeah, this card feels really bad. I don't want to say it's too bad, since if you can get 8 armor from it, that's a decent pull for 1 mana. Whether or not you can get that before it's destroyed, I highly doubt it. Still, in some instances, it might be a decent turn 1 play in slow decks, because the one thing I can think of right off the bat is like, oh, maybe in Druid you can play this on turn 1, since, let's be frank, they don't really do anything on turn 1. And then you can get the 8 armor to help you with the Jasper Spellstone and such. You know, stuff like that. Still, I would say be careful with this card. It is not the best 1-drop in the world, and let's be frank, Hearthstone is a game that has a lot of high-quality 1-drops. So I'm going to say not that great, but I think in the right deck you could potentially synergize with it. Though I don't think you should put this in willy-nilly, because this card overall is pretty bad, but I'm just going to say not that great. But next up, the Helpless Hatchling, the cute card of the set. It's a 1-mana 1/1 beast with the Death Rattle. Reduce the cost of a beast in your hand by 1 mana. Always keep your eye on 1-drop beasts, especially if they can help discount a mid-range / late-game beast deck. I think many people are sleeping on this card. It's not amazing, don't get me wrong, but I can see applications in beast-centric decks, and with that, I would say the card's good. You can probably test it in a beast deck, and you'll be happy with it. Next up, one of the more weirder epics we got, which, that's saying something with the Gurubashi Offering, is the Ice Cream Peddler, a 4-mana free 5 that has the battle cry, if you control a frozen minion, gain 8 armor. Hey, a card for free, Shaman! Okay, but in all seriousness, you could make an argument that it might just be a semi-tech card if Elemental Mage or any Freeze Mage shenanigans become really popular in the meta. Getting 8 armor is pretty decent, if that's the case. Still, in general, card is not that great, but who knows, maybe there'll be something we're not accounting for, and this might actually be one of the more decent tech cards of the set. I highly doubt it, but hey, you gotta appreciate such a sweet card. Hey, I gotta make a pun out of how weird this card is. Okay, next up is the Regenerating Thug, a 4-mana 3/5. At the start of your turn, restore 2 health to this minion. Actually, this one's pretty good. Really, the only reason why I'm keeping an eye on this card is that the heal/zoo variation decks that we see in the meta. I think it's just a decent card to experiment with in those type of decks. Overall, pretty easy. It's a good card. I think you can try it in those basic decks, or even just try it as a mid-range minion. Great card for Arena, though. Next up, the Robotusk Shaker! A 4-mana free 2 with the Death Rattle. Summon a free 2 Robotusk Breaker! It's a card that you can test in egg-like decks. Still, a free 2 that spawns a free 2 is not that great. The only main strength of this card is that it's technically sticky. Besides that, you could try it in cube Death Rattle style decks. Who knows? Maybe this card is a lot more better than I'm giving it credit for. With that, I say it's overall just a good card. I think you can just play it in a deck and just see what happens. Next up, the Scarab Egg, a 2-mana 0/2 with Death Rattle, summon free 1/1 Scarabs. It'll be interesting to see if egg-style decks would want an egg that gives a wide board rather than a tall minion. It might be something to do, or at least to try, in token-style deck synergies. In a way, it's a teeny kind of Violet Worm in a sense, so that's something. I don't know exactly what would be a perfect deck for this type of card. Though, to be fair, if you can able to trade this in while Knife Juggler is on the field, that might actually be pretty saucy, so... Overall, I think the card is good, but I am still trying to figure out how to use it in the deck. Still, I think it's one you can at least try out at the very least. Next up, the 2-mana Serpent Ward. It's a 2-mana 0/2 totem, so the first neutral totem we ever got, that has the ability that at the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. It's pretty cool to get a neutral totem. The effect is also kind of neat too. The stats, though, are kind of what's not selling me on the card. I mean, the card has some interesting potential in totem synergy decks that Shaman have. However, I am not sure about that, so I'm going to say not that great, but I think it's a card you can at least try out in like a mid-range, maybe aggro deck. Maybe even just try it in even Shaman, but I am not 100% sure on that. Next up, the Shield Breaker, a 2-mana 2/1 with Battlecry, silence an enemy with Taunt. This one's as short as simple. It's amazing. Even aggro decks, which even decks are a thing, do need cards to help pass Taunt, and this card is perfect for that. Also, the low cost for the Battlecry could help mid-range decks out as well. Yeah, let's be frank, a majority of the popular aggro decks are odd decks, don't get me wrong. But if there is a way to make an even deck work for aggro, they're going to be relying on this card. And with that, I think the card will most likely see play. With that, it's amazing. You're probably going to see this card a lot. Next up, the Spellzerker, a 2-mana 2/free that has spell damage +2 while damaged. This is actually a decently static 2-drop with actually a pretty cool effect. It could be used in Temple Maid style decks and could also just be used in decks that might take advantage of the spell damage effect. Like maybe even an even Shaman deck and such. It's not a bad arena card either. I'd say keep an eye on this card. This card might actually surprise you. Next up, the Stolen Steel, a rogue class card that has 2 mana to discover a weapon from another class. So it's another Burgle style card. It is a nice addition to the Burglar Rogue archetype, and you could potentially get some very powerful weapons from the card, like Twig of the World Tree and such. But the variance of this card to discover something you would want is really, really high. I don't know if it will work in other archetypes, but I think this is the fun card for Rogue. This is a card you can try out, and it's probably going to be shown on like some random Trollden video where they get Twig of the World Tree, and then they get 10 mana, and they do a silly, silly combo. Besides that, I don't think it's that great. It's definitely going to get the rating, not that great, but I do think it's a fun card that you could just put in as a 1 or maybe even a 2 of just to see what happens, just for shenanigans' sakes. And the final card of the set is another common for Shaman, the Wartbringer. It's a 1-mana 2/1 with the Battlecry. If you play 2 spells this turn, deal 2 damage. It's a card that'd be interesting to try in spell-centric Shaman decks. Besides that, you probably don't want to play this card as an aggressive unit. I am curious to see if the card will see play, but I highly doubt it. And with that, that is all the cards from the current set. And to give my final thoughts on it, I think this is actually going to be a pretty fun fall set. Or not fall, well, technically winter set, sorry, it's just, yeah. brain fart on that one. I think in general this is actually going to be a really fun winter set. Mostly winter sets are cards pretty much have cards with high power curves, and we have been seeing that, especially with the archetypes they're trying to encourage and such. As for one of my most anticipated cards, I think I am excited for mostly if I have to make a guess. I think the card I am most excited for is the Gurabashi Afri. No, I am just kidding. No. Honestly, I think my most excited card is probably, if I had to tell you, is the Daring Fire Eater. Yes, it's a common, but I do think this common has a lot of potential silly shenanigans if you're not careful. Besides that, this set looks really exciting. I can't wait to go to the pre-release this weekend and just try out some of the new cards. I hope you all who are going to will have a lovely time at your guys' local events. Hope you enjoyed this new expansion. And with that, that's my 2 cents, and I hope you have a lovely night. This is LevDev, signing out.